you know?
See, now I call that the inner voice of doom,
Hmm.
where you get that you know something's going to happen, but you don't quite know what, and it's in the background, and it's sort of like tension builds and builds and builds, and but you have no idea what. It's just like somebody saying something's going to happen.
Yep, yep,
Yep.
yeah. I woke up one day and I couldn't breathe, and I don't have breathing problems. And I was like, oh my God, this is the strangest thing. I mean, I'm having a hard time. I can't catch my breath. I'm really having a hard time breathing. And my son and I went downtown. My granddaughter was participating in a concert. And we parked the car, walked half a block. I had to stop, bend over, try and catch my breath. And he's like, Mom, are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital? I mean, I've never seen you like this. And I'm like, you know what? Let's listen to her sing, and then we'll go to the doctor because this is not right. Something's wrong with me. I mean, I really thought I was probably going to have a heart attack and die or something. I didn't know what was going on. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. So my granddaughter went ahead and sang, and afterwards, I started feeling better. So we're like, okay, well, let's walk through a couple shops before we head to the next town. Started walking through the shops, and I got into one of the shops, and I couldn't leave. I'm like, no, there's something here I got to buy. And I couldn't figure out what it was. There was nothing I wanted. I walked around that store 3 times. And it's just a little gift shop, you know. And I'm like, finally I kind of got frustrated because there was really nothing I wanted to buy. Nothing at all. So I just grabbed some mints off the counter and I went up to pay for them. I didn't even want the mints, but I had to buy something. I didn't know why. But I'm just following my instincts, right? Okay, we'll get some mints. So I get up to the counter, and the lady takes my card, and she says, oh, Gypsy Moon, that's a beautiful name. And I said, why, thank you. I'm a psychic medium. And we both stood there staring at each other with our jaws dropped. And I'm like, I normally never introduce myself that way. I'm sorry that I really didn't. I mean, I didn't know what to say for myself, you know. And there was 2 women behind the counter. The second woman walked away. And the first woman stayed there with my card in her hand. And she said, you know, I had a psychic reading done once, and it actually was really cool. The lady was, you know, very spot on, and that was, you know. So come to find out that, well, this is her telling me, proceed, right? So I did what they call, you know, pulling a Caputo. And I ended up giving her a reading on the spot. And I said, well, are you open to receiving a message today? And she's like, yeah, I would love one. So I'm like, okay. And I said, well, I've been having trouble breathing all morning. And so I have a feeling that this is someone who's been having some breathing problems. And she's nodding her head. I'm like, okay. And then I just kept going with it. And, you know, it was a man. Well, it turns out her father had died 3 days ago from lung cancer. And
Wow.
I ended up giving her a yeah, right? But see, you don't, like I said, it's always putting the puzzles together, you know? You get a piece here, you get a piece there, and you got to just keep going and follow it until you get to where you got to be. Well, he actually, the more I did the reading, the more he came through. He stepped in and took over the reading because I don't even remember all of it. But I did have my daughter-in-law there with me, and she watched my face change. Nobody ever pulls out a video for this. I'd really like to see this stuff happen for myself. But she did. She said I almost fell down. I almost tipped over. She had to jump to kind of like catch me. And next thing I know, I was holding this woman's hand, and I felt this transference of energy that was so intense. And apparently he had been very abusive to her growing up, and she was having a real hard time forgiving him. And he needed her forgiveness. You know, he didn't want to leave without it. So that was the whole thing of it. It wasn't really me grabbing her hand, it was him, and he literally took some of her pain. Not all of it. He couldn't get it all. But he got a lot of it. And that's what almost knocked me off my feet.
Wow.
By the time we were done, yeah, it was an incredible reading. By the time we were done, I was like, I had to go home. You know, I think I stayed on the couch for a couple of days after that one. But she had changed her entire attitude from the beginning of the reading, where, you know, she was angry. She was, you know, shaking her head no, she wasn't going to forgive him, to, you know, to the point where by the time we were done, she was crying and nodding her head yes, and sending him on his way, you know. So, I mean, there was some really profound healing that took place there. And honestly, I didn't have anything to do with it. I don't look at it from that perspective, because I wasn't the one doing it. He was. He did that. You know, he might have used me, but that's what I am. I'm the medium. I'm the in-between guy. I'm just, you know, delivering the message. I'm not the one doing anything. That was him. Her father took on her pain. Her father gave her the love that she needed to heal. That didn't come from me. That came through me. And when I get to have experiences like that can help people, man, I'll tell you what, nothing makes me love my job more than something like that.
Wow. Now, you was talking a while ago, and you kind of answered this particular question that I had, but I thought I'd go ahead and ask it anyway again. As the years go by, we get older, as it shows in many ways on our appearance, you might say.
We get wrinkly.
Yes. So does a spirit age in their appearance? Or when they die, do they stay do they stay the same when they die for all time, or do they actually grow older?
Well, yeah, I was going to say there's a different color that comes with an older soul. As the soul ages, from that perspective, that's, you know, which actually kind of makes it easy on the other side to identify the different levels. And so there's, as far as color goes, yes, they do age. But from a physical appearance, what I think is interesting is when you're on the other side, you project whatever you want to project from one to another. If you have a favorite body, you may project that body more often than others. Typically, you're going to project what you want someone to recognize or see. So if you knew your grandfather and he always looked old as far as you knew him, he's not going to project himself to you and looking like he did when he was 30, because you're not going to recognize him. You're like, who are you? You know, I might even scare you. But if you see that wrinkled old grandpa that you used to love so much, you recognize him right away, and you're not going to be fearful, you know. And that's, you know, he's going to want to be acknowledged for who he is to you.
Right.
So they have that ability to project themselves however they would be recognized. And that could be, you know, that's going to be dependent upon who is seeing them, who they want to project themselves to. So you've got that from the perspective of them projecting themselves here on Earth. But on the other side, amongst each other, they can project whatever they prefer to project. And it's different because even regardless of who you project yourself as from what lifetime, you're still going to be recognized eventually, for sure. You know, maybe not right away, but eventually those that know you by your essence. Mm. So even if you project yourself, like, say you and I died and we're on the other side, and I project myself to you as a man that I used to be from another lifetime, you might not recognize me as Gypsy right away, but eventually, after maybe, you know, being around me for a few minutes, you're going to be like, oh, I know you. You used to be Gypsy too. You know what I mean? So there's that acknowledgement. You can't hide from one another. There's really no sneaky anything, because everything is so translucent. I mean, it's, your intentions are there. You know, they're readable. There's really nothing to hide. No way to hide it.
Wow. Barbara, we got about 8 minutes here before we take a break. You got questions. I know you got a ton of them.
Well, I was thinking that this is probably a little like soul entanglement, and that there's tendrils or whatever that souls throughout different types of reincarnations know each other, because somehow it's kind of like, quantum entanglement. Two elements, sort of once they touch, they know each other, or they react to each other all the time.
That's right.
And
That's
this is
right.
kind of in the same way,
Yes.
on a larger scale, no matter who you come back as, you know each other because it's that way.
Yeah, and I mean, our conscious mind is very limited. I mean, it is so limited. We can't remember what we had for breakfast 10 years ago.
I can't remember yesterday.
Side, you have a memory of, right? Yeah, exactly. But on the other side, you have the memory of multiple lifetimes. And we quite frankly can't handle that much knowledge here. I mean, we're not even supposed to be looking or focusing on that necessarily, because there's other things that we're supposed to be focusing on. And most of what we're supposed to be focusing on is how to get away from the fear and onto the love. Not live a fear-based life. To face our fears, to overcome our fears, to overcome the challenges, to take the risk, take the challenge, go for what we want, go for what we know we need, instead of being afraid to try.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were talking before about the analysis of the person when they pass over, and there's this wonderful movie with Albert Brooks called Defending Your Life.
One of the best.
It sort of has that quality to it where you're presented with ideas of what your life was like and how you grew and what mistakes you made and what you learned from it, and from there you decide where you're going.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we were even talking about like the suicides and stuff. With that, I always like to try and kind of compare Earth to like a college. We come here, it's like a university. And before we come, we're going to choose our courses. And when we take it in our own hands to leave early, we're choosing to drop out. And sometimes it's justifiable, and sometimes it's not justifiable. But it's it's kind of like dropping out of high school. I mean, there's nothing wrong with dropping out of high school. I mean, I don't slight anybody for doing it, but I do know that everybody that has wishes that they had just finished. They only had a couple of more years to go or a year left. They wish they would have finished. And when I've dealt with people that have taken their own lives, more times than not, they wish they would have just finished. Even some of those that were terminally ill. So there's something to be said about going ahead to finish, because if you don't finish, you're coming back. You're coming back, and you're going to still have to deal with all the things that you didn't want to deal with. You're going to be dealing with it on the other side. And then you're going to come back. It's like I just wasted this whole time. Like somebody who's 25 years old and kills themselves. It's like you just wasted 25 years because you got to come back and do it again anyway. You're going to have to redo. So
can they redo it and not kill herself the second time?
Oh, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Sure it does. People make the same mistakes over and over.
No, but I mean, if they come back to try and rectify stuff, can they this time go through life and not kill themselves?
Oh, yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's what you want to do. You want them to finish.